Hi, this is Daniel Brown. Today we're going to talk about general payoff diagrams. So our goals. First, we're going to review the key building blocks for payoff diagrams. We are going to learn how to build a payoff diagram for a portfolio of options, forwards, and zero coupon bonds. And then we're also going to learn how to identify a portfolio from a payoff diagram. So first, the building blocks. One of our building blocks is European options. So the payoff of a call option is the terminal asset price, so we're going to call that ST, minus the strike on the option if the asset ends up above the strike, and 0 if the asset ends up below the strike. The payoff of a European put option is K minus ST, just the opposite of that, but only if the asset ends up below the strike, and 0 if the asset ends up above the strike. If you're short an option, then the payoff is the opposite of those two formulas. And if you're long N options, then multiply the formula by N. Just as a reminder, long one call option with strike 95, the payoff diagram looks like this. And long one put option with strike 95, the payoff diagram looks like this. Again, for the call, it's 0 below the strike, and it's $1 for every dollar the asset ends up above the strike. If the asset ends up at 99, the payoff is 4. Again, for a put, if the asset ends up at 92, the payoff is 3. Next, we look at forward contracts. If you're long a forward contract with strike K, then the payoff is ST minus K, again, where ST is the final asset price. You make $1 for every dollar the asset ends up above the strike, and you lose $1 for every dollar the asset ends up below the strike. If you're short a forward contract, it's just the opposite. It's K minus ST, where K is the strike and ST is the final asset price. And then if you're long N forward contracts, the payoff is N times ST minus K. Again, this is our picture. This is long one forward contract with strike 95. If the asset ends up at 95, the payoff is 0. If the asset ends up at 98, the payoff is 3. If the asset ends up at 91, the payoff is negative 4. Finally, we look at zero coupon bonds. If you're long a zero coupon bond paying X at maturity, then the payoff is always X at maturity. If you're short a zero coupon bond paying X, then the payoff is always minus X at maturity. Again, X is the principal of the zero coupon bond. The payoff looks like this. It's not very exciting. It's just a straight line depending on what the principal is. So here in this example, the principal is 5 and the zero coupon bond always pays 5. Those are our building blocks. So next we want to build a payoff diagram from a portfolio. The key insight is that the payoff of all the components of the portfolio are made up of straight lines. The only place where one of those components changes directions is at the strike. If we add together a series of piecewise linear functions, we get a piecewise linear function. So if we've got these components, what we've just talked about, options, puts, calls, forward contracts, zero coupon bonds, the payoffs of all of those are piecewise linear. We add them together, we still have something piecewise linear. So we have key price levels. If we have a portfolio of options, forwards, and zero coupon bonds, the only places where the payoff can change directions is at the strikes on the options. If we evaluate the portfolio at each of those strikes and at the highest and lowest asset prices on the payoff diagram, then we can connect the dots to create the payoff diagram. Let's do an example. So we're going to draw a payoff diagram for the following portfolio. Short one put option with strike 10, short one forward contract with strike 20, long one call option with strike 30, and short a zero coupon bond paying 5 at maturity. So step 1, identify the key levels. Given the strikes, we will draw the payoff diagram on the chart with final asset prices from 0 to 50. So the strikes and the options are 10 and 30. Therefore, we need to evaluate the portfolio at 0, 10, 30, and 50. We can ignore the strike on the forward contract as we know the payoff does not change direction at that point. So step 2, evaluate the portfolio. I'm building a little table here. On the left-hand side are my positions. Across the top are the final asset prices, so 0, 10, 30, and 50. I evaluate each individual component of my portfolio at each of those final asset prices. So the put, we're short a put with strike of 10, so that's worth negative 10 if the asset ends up at 0, and then 0 otherwise. Short forward contract, strike 20. If the asset ends up at 0, we make $20. If it ends up at 10, we make $10. If it ends up at 30, we lose $10. If it ends up at 50, we lose $30. Long a call with strike 30, it's going to be 0 for the asset ending up at 0, 10, and 30, and it's 20, if the asset ends up at 50. And finally, that 0 coupon bond, we're short it paying 5, which means we lose $5 no matter where the asset ends up. So we add those things up. If the asset ends up at 0, it's worth 5. If the asset ends up at 10, it's worth 5. The payoff is 5. If the asset ends up at 30, the payoff is minus 15. And if the asset ends up at 50, the payoff is minus 15. So first, we plot the points. And second, we connect the dots. Now we've drawn the payoff diagram. That works no matter what. So basically, identify the strikes in your options, in this case 10 and 30. Value the portfolio at the lowest point in your chart. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's not. At each of those strikes, so 10 and 30, and then at the highest asset price in your payoff diagram, in this case 50. Find those points, plot the points, draw lines to connect them. Next, we're going to look at building a portfolio from a payoff diagram. Again, key insights. If we have a payoff diagram, we must have call or put options at final asset prices where the slope changes. Second, a put option does not affect the payoff above its strike, and a call option does not affect the payoff below its strike. Adding a 0 coupon bond to a portfolio shifts the entire portfolio, the payoff, up or down. Adding a forward contract to a portfolio tilts the entire portfolio. Generally, we avoid this. So when we're when we're trying to figure out a portfolio from a payoff diagram, we're generally not going to use forward contracts. Again, a forward contract, if we're long a forward contract, that's the same as being long a call and short a put with the same strike. So we don't really need forward contracts. We can get away with calls, puts, and 0 coupon bonds. So what's our strategy? Our strategy is find some place in the diagram where the payoff is 0. From that point to the left, use put options to create changes in the slope. From that point to the right, use call options to create changes in the slope. And then if there's no place where the payoff is 0, use a 0 coupon bond as the first position, effectively shifting the entire payoff up or down. All right, let's do an example. So here's our example. This is our portfolio payoff. Effectively, there are turning points at 10, 15, 20, and 30. That means there need to be options at 10, 15, 20, and 30. So step 1, identify some place where the payoff is 0. Well, it's 0 between 15 and 20. Step 2, use put options to the left. The first place where the slope changes, again, we're starting between 15 and 20, we're going to the left. First place where the slope changes is at 15. The payoff turns up, so we're long one put with strike 15. Second place it changes is at 10. The payoff turns down, so we go short one put with strike 10. And that's going to draw everything below 20 in our payoff diagram. And we know because of their puts, they don't affect anything above, in this case, 15. Next, we're going to use call options going to the right. Again, we're starting in that 15 to 20 range because the payoff is 0. First place where the slope changes at 20, it turns down, so we're short a call with strike 20. The next place it changes is at 30, it turns up, so we're going to go long a call with strike 30. That gives us our portfolio. Long a put, strike 15, short a put, strike 10, short a call, strike 20, long a call, strike 30. There are lots and lots of different ways to build this payoff diagram. So let me give you a different example here. We could start between 0 and 10. Starting between 0 and 10, we need to shift everything up. So long a 0 coupon bond paying 5. Payoff, now we're going to use calls because we're going to the right. Turns down, so that's short a call, strike 10, long a call, strike 15, short a call, strike 20, long a call, strike 30. And we can do that anywhere. We could start between 30 and 50, short 0 coupon bond paying 10, long a put with strike 30, short a put with strike 20, long a put with strike 15, short a put with strike 10, and so on. So there are lots and lots of different ways to build these to build the portfolios. Given a payoff diagram, easiest, find some place where it's 0.